Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Annisa Putri. Today I will describe or explain about morpheme and their types. So, what is morpheme? Morpheme is the object of study of morphology, while morphology itself is a branch of linguistics that studies basic word and affixes. So the morpheme is related to both things. Morpheme in Indonesian is the smallest grammatical unit that has meaning. Morpheme cannot be further divided into smaller forms of language, but those that can stand alone or those that cannot stand alone. So morpheme can be exemplified by a word like below. So we're going to talk about type of morpheme. There is free morpheme and bound morpheme. So the first is free morpheme. Free morpheme have a content word or lexical word and functional word. So the first is content word or lexical word, and the type of content or lexical word is noun, verb, adjective, and adverb. Before it, I will explain about noun. What is noun? Noun is a word that identifies something. It can be an object, person, idea, or even. For example, is book, water, plants, cat, and dog, and so on. The verb is generally describe someone who is doing something. And for example, is run, sit, study, cooking, swimming, and so on. The next is adjective. Adjective generally describe a noun or state. And for example of adjective is beautiful, kind, smart, lazy, crazy, and so on. And the last part of content word is adverb. Adverb that function to describe a verb or adjective. And for example of adverb is here, there, slowly, and mostly. After that, we're going to talk about functional word. So what is functional word? A functional word or functional morpheme is a morpheme that can stand alone but cannot accept affixes, either suffixes or prefixes. And this morpheme include preposition, conjunction, article, comparative, pronoun, demonstration, and quantifier. So the fourth is, what is preposition? Preposition can indicate a relationship, place, or times. And for example of preposition is at, on, in, of, and beside. So the next is pronoun. A pronoun is a substitute for a noun, and the use of pronouns is intended so that there is no repetition of the same noun in a sentence. And for example, I, you, they, we, he, and she. And the next is conjunction. Conjunction is a combination of a sentence which shows or informs the relationship between two parts of sentence that are related to each other. And for example of conjunction, and, or, but, so. And the next is interjection. I think interjection, the section is generally an exclamation or exclamation point. So the example of interjection is wow, have, ah. Next, we're going to talk about article. Article is basically an adjective which function to modify nouns. An example is a, and, the. And we're going to talk about comparative. Comparative adjective is an adjective that is used to compare two objects by adding the suffix er at the end of the adjective. And for example is better, worse, less, and more. And the next we're going to talk about demonstrative. demonstrative pronoun, like kata ganti, petunjuk yang tergolong ke dalam definisi of pronoun. And for example is that, these, this, and those. And the last part of functional morpheme is quantifier. Quantifier is a word that precedes a noun and serves to indicate the amount of the noun. So the example is some, many, a lot of, and a few. And the type and the second type of morpheme is bond morpheme. So what is bond morpheme? Bond morphemes is morpheme that cannot stand alone because it must be bound with other morphemes to become a word. These bond morphemes are further grouped into two, namely derivational morpheme and inflectional morphemes. So the first is derivational morpheme. So what is derivational? A derivational morpheme is a morpheme that changes the class of word of the meaning of words, and this morpheme is in the form of affixes, both prefix and suffix. So for example of derivational morpheme is happy as adjective plus ness as a suffix. So become the happiness as a noun. And the next example is an as prefix plus kind as adjective become unkind as adjective. And the last part of bond morpheme is inflectional morpheme. What is inflectional morpheme? Inflectional morpheme is a morpheme that does not cause a change in word class and word meaning. The morpheme only affects the number or plurality and the form of times of tense. And for example of inflectional morpheme is dog as a noun plus s as plural. And the next is white as a verb plus ed as a tense. And dog, there is a plus s, become dogs as a noun, and white plus ed become wanted as a verb. So I think that's all for material for me, and I apologize if I have a many mistake, and I think that's all for me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.